Hi guys, it's Sarah from Book Nerds and Fangirls, and today I'll be doing my top favorite books from before I discovered Booktube. I love this topic because there are so many books that I found before Booktube because I was an avid reader in my middle school and high school years, and I didn't really discover Booktube until like a year or two ago, so I had a very big head start on this category because I read books before Booktube, more so whenever I was in middle and high school than I did in college and so on and so forth, but that's because I've been working a lot more than I did in college and high school, and, things just happen and you don't have a lot of time to read. Also, a quick disclaimer, if you hear whining and barking in the background, me and my husband have just gotten a new puppy. She's not house trained yet. She's not used to the house yet. I think we barely got her a week ago. I've been trying to keep this announcement under wraps for specific reasons that I don't want to go into at the moment, but please note that we do have a puppy, so if you hear barking and whining in the background, it's because she wants to play, and right now I'm filming, so I can't really play with her at the moment, but I will play with her after this video. So don't worry guys, I'm not completely ignoring my puppy when she barks and whines. And when she's been out of her cage a couple times today, the only reason why she's even in a kennel to begin with is because she's not house trained. She's just barely a puppy, so we gotta get her house trained first before we could get her more introduced to the house, because this is a rental, so we can't really afford to lose our deposit on the house, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, until she's properly potty trained, we're keeping her in the kennel for like a couple hours a day at most, unless one or both of us is here, then she's out of her kennel. But since I'm filming and I can't exactly watch her right now, she's in her kennel, but after this she'll be out, so don't worry about that. So on with the topic. I have quite a few books here that I discovered before Booktube, and these are a lot of my favorite books. Like, I think they're all my favorite books, actually, because if people haven't noticed in this channel, a lot of the books that I claim are my favorites, I haven't had reviews up for except maybe An Ember in the Ashes. I think that's my only favorite book series of all time that's on this list that I have read because of Booktube. That and, A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which was an amazing series, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Farah and Rhysand are my OTP as of this moment. They're not Delena and Romitri status, but they're definitely up there. So going into the topic, the very first book I have here to show you is Succubus Blues by Rochelle Mead. I read this book in 10th grade, I believe. I was looking for more Rochelle Mead novels because I believe I had just read Vampire Academy. It was around 9th or 10th grade that I discovered Vampire Academy, so I picked up more by Rochelle Mead. I even thought it was so badass that I was reading books out of the adult section. I would never bring this to school because, of course, my school is very strict about what we could and couldn't read in our town's public schools, so this definitely wouldn't have gone well with them. Succubus Blues follows a succubus named Georgia, who is living in Seattle. She doesn't really like being a succubus, but, she can't really change being a succubus. She works at a bookstore with a boss who is completely into her, who disgusts her, but at the same time, she doesn't really care if, every time they have sex, she sucks his soul out. And then everything changes whenever her favorite author, Seth, comes to town, and he stays in town. I'm not sure if he works at the bookstore, I think they offer him a position. opposition, but I really liked this book for what it was. I personally don't really like Seth and Georgia together. I preferred her Ronan, but, you know, to each their own. Each their own. It wasn't a bad series, by all means. I really want to buy the rest of these books, because this is the only book I didn't have on my e-reader before my e-reader totally gave out on me and stopped working. But this is definitely a good one to pick up if you're looking for more adult fantasy, but at the same time you're like me and adult fantasy intimidates you. This is a good one to start with. I really liked it. Rochelle Mead does a lot of easy to get into fantasies. That's not high fantasy, she's more of an urban fantasy author, so she's cool. She's cool. The next book I have here is another Rochelle Mead novel, and that's Stormborn by Rochelle Mead. This follows Eugenia, a girl by the name of Eugene? Yeah, Eugene. She is a shaman, and one day she stumbles across a world of fae. A fae who takes her to their king, and shenanigans start producing from there. But in the midst of all these shenanigans, she finds out that she is I don't really know how to say it. So she finds out she's in a center of a prophecy. Ancient prophecy, and she doesn't want to fulfill this prophecy. Because this isn't her, it's not her life. But I love this book for what it was, and I love the series until the very end. Like, if I could make a video about disappointing series ends, I would definitely have this book in there, because I think this is one of the most disappointing endings to a book series I've seen in a while. Besides, Allegiant. But we don't talk about Allegiant. We don't even have a movie for Allegiant anymore, because, a lot of people don't want to fund that because of what happens in Allegiant. So, yeah. Yeah, we don't talk about that ending either. So the next book I have here is yet again another Rochelle Mead novel. I found this in 9th grade, I believe, or 10th grade. It's only amongst my teen years, but of course that's Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I found Vampire Academy way before Booktube. I knew Booktube even existed. I knew YouTube existed. I didn't know there was a specific platform for books on here. But Vampire Academy, to this day, is still my favorite book series of all time. This follows Rose Hathaway. I really can't talk today, guys. I'm sorry. This follows a girl named Rose Hathaway. She is half Moroi, half human, which is called a Dhampir in this book, and her main mission in life is to protect and serve her best friend, Vasilisa Dragomir, who is a royal Moroi and the last in her line. In the beginning of this book series, Rose and Lissa are on the run from the academy because of a event that occurred before the book series that we follow in this specific book. They get recaptured by the academy, and this is them getting back into that life in the academy. This is definitely one of my favorite book series of all time. Definitely one of my favorite book series that involves vampires. This is a book series that is 6 books long, has 6 spin-off books, and also has a movie, even though we don't talk about the movie, because at first I was just so excited to have a movie form of my favorite book. But now looking back at it, it really sucked. And it didn't do this book justice. It didn't portray the bond between Rose and Lissa very well. It didn't really show how much of a badass Rose really was, nor did it really portray the awesome relationship between Rose and Dimitri, which is my ultimate OTP. So when the movie made it a very cutesy teenage love story, I hated it so bad. So bad. Rose and Dimitri are my favorite couple, and if they can make Damon and Elena a very epic couple, in my opinion, a lot of people don't really agree that Damon and Elena are a very epic couple. They are more towards the Stefan and Elena ship, which I completely understand. Stefan and Elena weren't a horrible couple in my eyes. I just personally didn't like Stefan. I hated Stefan for so long. But Rose and Dimitri never ceased to fail me, and when they made it a very lukewarm romance in the movies, I hated it, which is why I think Vampire Academy should get a second chance and become a TV series instead, because they're even making Throne of Glass a TV series, and Throne of Glass doesn't have a lot of spin-off series like this one does, so why can't Vampire Academy be a TV series? I just don't understand. I'm sorry guys, this is going to be a very long video, apparently. So the next book I have here is actually an actual required reading book that I was required to read for my 11th or 12th grade English Expo. For people who don't know what English Expo is, it's a thing we do here in New Mexico. I'm not sure if they do it in any other state, but we definitely do it here in New Mexico. It's basically a writing competition and a reading competition. I was in this classic literature contest, and one of the books that I was required to read was 1984 by George Orwell. Now, I'll definitely be giving this a reread, because I don't really remember what exactly it was about. All I remember is I was very blown away by it. I know it takes place in a dystopian future as it was back when it was written, because this book was written in 1968. It's a pretty old book, so 1984 was quite a few years away when George Orwell wrote this book. So I'm excited to reread this because it's definitely a classic, and I've been in the mood for a little bit of classics and reading books that I used to read when I was younger. And I feel like 1984 really describes the situations we're going through now, but that's a totally other video in my opinion, nor am I gonna get into politics or religion in this channel, because it just sparks fights like crazy. I'm surprised my Prayers for Orlando video didn't get a lot of hate that I was expecting it to get. But at the same time, no one could have blamed me for that, like some things being said about that pissing me off. But 1984 is definitely a good one. I love it. But the synopsis is very short. It's in a dystopian future, so pick it up. It's very good. Next book I have here is a part of my Lauren McDaniel recommendations video, and that's Garden of Angels by Lauren McDaniel. This follows a girl named Darcy. The year is, I believe it's actually it was 1974. I was about to say 1984, which would have been ironic, considering what book I just picked up. But the year's 1974, and this follows a girl named Darcy, who is just entering high school. This is actually one of the first books I've ever read, so you know it's good when I still remember it whenever I'm 24 years old, and I read this book when I was 12 or 13, honestly. So this follows a girl named Darcy. The year is 1974. She's just barely starting high school and learning about boys and life and everything. She helps her mother in the garden. Everything seems to be going well for Darcy until she figures out one day that her mother has breast cancer, and it just follows their journey as a family while her mother is going through this. And this book was really prominent in my growth because I read this book whenever I think it was after my great-grandmother died from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 13. So I read this book, and I could feel Darcy's pain through this book. I know it's different when it's your parent, but the person that I lost was a huge part of my family. She was like one of the best parts of my family that I loved so much. She was one of my favorite family members, and it was really a tragedy for me, and I'm still working on the money to get a tattoo in memorial for my great-grandmother, but this book definitely really helped in my processing of her death, because I felt so much for Darcy, because I knew the situation that she was in, about the not understanding why this thing happens to good people. Good people and the way the world works. So this book is really prominent in my life, and I'm glad I picked it up. Next book I have here is, it says what goes around comes around, but this is a two-storyer. But this book I'm specifically talking about are Some Girls Are by Courtney Summers. This follows Regina. She's a part of the popular crowd in school, and then one night after a party, a rumor gets spread, leaving Regina kicked out and isolated from her group. Who now starts treating her as a victim of bullying. She's bullied severely by the girls she used to call friends. She's an outcast in the school because everyone hates her because of what they did to her, and it just follows what she goes through. And this is probably one of the most realistic portrays of bullying I've seen in a while. In books, even more recent books, bullying is kind of like lukewarm. This book definitely does not stray away from how bad bullying could actually get. I read this when I was a teenager, and bullying was such a huge part of my life because I went through it so often. I was mostly a target for most bullies whenever I was growing up. So reading Some Girls Are really did make me feel like, wow, I don't know what she's going through, because I was never really a complete bitch to people when I was growing up. Not so much now that I've grown up somewhat and know how to stand up for myself, but definitely during high school is very prominent to my reading experience, and I definitely love it. The next book I have here is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher, another book that centers around bullying. Like I said, I was bullied when I was in middle school and high school. I read this book in middle school when the bullying was very severe for me. I got bullied more in middle school than I did in high school. Because a lot of people seem tamer in high school. Don't know why, because I guess middle school is because of raging hormones. We don't understand it. But 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher was a very prominent book to my growth. This was the first non-Lauren McDaniel book that I read after my great-grandmother's passing, and it definitely was awesome. This book follows a guy named Clay, who comes home one day to find 13 tapes on his doorstep from his former classmate Hannah Baker, who has just recently committed suicide. And on these tapes are the 13 reasons why she killed herself, or specifically, the 12 to 13 people who made decisions in her hand to kill herself. I loved this book, and I definitely really loved the TV show. Like, if you want to know my thoughts on the TV show, I have a full video for it, and it's a book versus TV show, so I know a lot of people like when I do those, so definitely check that out. But this book I found was middle school, and it really opened my eyes to the things you say to people could, even if it's just like a little thing, like you're such a bitch, could have such an effect on people. And I definitely love this book because I know a lot of people say, wow, I remember getting bullied so more severely than Hannah does, but a lot of people take bullying on different levels, and Hannah was one of those people. But I definitely enjoyed reading her experience and reading Clay's experience, and it was definitely a great book. If I have quirks about this book, it's the reason why the main character is on the tapes, but you know, we don't talk about that. I have a full video of my thoughts about the books and the TV show, so. The next book I have here is definitely going to be on a lot of people's list, but that's The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Ignore the sticker. I didn't have the actual book for it until my sister had a yard sale. And oop, that's my alarm. Ignore that. I usually sleep late, but The Hunger Games follow, like, I don't think I need a synopsis for The Hunger Games. I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother knows The Hunger Games because of either the books or the movies, because they had such a huge following. But The Hunger Games was one of my first dystopians that I read before I even knew what a dystopian was. I'm like, wait, there's a category for this? I need more books that are dystopian, like pronto. So I read The Hunger Games whenever I was in 10th or 11th grade. So this book was definitely a very great book, but my favorite is definitely Catching Fire. The Hunger Games was okay, Catching Fire is my favorite. The next book I have here was actually a book that I loved so much that I actually requested because in the librarian got it. But whenever one of my fellow teachers gave it to her, this one was an unedited copy of the book. So instead of putting it in the library, the librarian who I hung out with a lot whenever I was in high school, because, you know, girl who loves books, why wouldn't she hide in the library? Because I hid in the library a lot, and I even read to the librarian a lot, especially Othello, which I didn't include on this list. For whatever reason. Othello is like my favorite Shakespeare play. For people who don't know my favorite Shakespeare play, it's Othello. But the one that she gave me was The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hopkins. And you could actually see that it used to be a library book because of a little library card, but I keep that to remember the lovely librarian that gave this to me. Because she was such a huge part of my life as well, and I really hope she's doing great. Haven't been back to my old high school in a while, so, so of course this is the story of Mara Dyer, and even I can't describe The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer because it is just such a crazy story. You don't know if the girl you're following really sees these things, the things she sees, or she is just imagining them and she's really a total mental whack job. But I definitely loved this first book, and I definitely love the second book. The third book is disappointing to me so far, which is why I haven't read it, even though I'm halfway through the book. But I don't want to, force myself to read. I think it was The Evolution of Mara Dyer. No, I think that's the second book. You see, I can't even remember what the third book's name is, but I'm pretty sure I actually have it somewhere on this bookshelf. If I actually, tried to find it. It's definitely in with the green ones, I believe. I can't find. There we go. There it is. Ugh. Come here, my lovely book. Yeah, The Retribution of Mara Dyer is the one book that I definitely can't get through right now. I think I'll give it another shot. But you see how far I am in this book, guys? I'm in chapter 23 of this book, and I can't finish it for whatever strange reason because I don't think it's as great as the other books in the series. But definitely The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer is a very great book The evolution of Mara Dyer is better, and the retribution of Mara Dyer so far has fallen flat to me. Maybe it'll get better, maybe not. It's just such a crazy book series, and I guess I have to be in the mood for crazy to read it, but definitely. So the next book I have here, ignore that it says Wings of the Wicked, but it's the Angel Fire series by Courtney Allison Moulton. And the reason why I'm showing you Wings of the Wicked is because the animal that I had growing up got a hold of my first copy and chewed it up. So Angel Fire is sitting on my shelf, really chewed up and in bad condition. So I got Wings of the Wicked here. But the Angel Fire series follows Ellie. She's a normal teenage girl growing up. She doesn't really have a strong connection with her father like she used to have. And then her life changes whenever she meets a guy named Will on her 17th birthday, who tells her that she is an angel or defender of angels. I can't really remember the exact prompt, but I remember this is like in my top book series of all time. I think it's sitting at number 4 at the moment because Ember the Ashes definitely pushed it a little bit, but definitely one of my favorite book series. I loved Ellie and Will's relationship so much. And this is actually a book that doesn't have a love triangle in it, surprisingly. So if you're looking for a book that has a tiny love triangle, but that's dealt with quickly, then I definitely suggest that one. The next book I have here for you. I should probably save this for last, actually. So the next 3 books I have here for you is one of my favorite authors, Ellen Hawkins. I just got a suggestion video today to do my favorite Ellen Hawkins books, but I'm probably gonna do a ranking of them because Ellen Hawkins was my life in high school besides Rochelle Mead. So I love all of her books. I haven't read 3 of her books, but that's it. But these are definitely my 3 favorites. So the first book I have for you here is Burned by Ellen Hawkins. This follows the story of Peyton Von Stratton, I believe her name is. Haha, I got it. She lives in a very conservative town. Her family is Mormon. She's living with the secret that her father beats the living crap out of her mother most days, and he's also a raging alcoholic in this book. And then one day she's finally had enough. She starts acting out in this book, and it's because of one event that makes her act out that her family decides to send her to her aunt that lives in Nevada, and her story begins there. And while Peyton is in Nevada, she meets this guy named Ethan that makes her start questioning her religion altogether. I loved this book. If you are looking for books about a strong question of religion, because I know there's a lot of people out there that question their religion that they were raised in and have other questions, this book definitely should be the book for you. I love this book to death. This ending, though, I will give like a slight warning, will make you cry. There are trigger warnings in here for abuse and loss, because a lot of Ellen Hawkins books deal with the subject of death in them also. This also is banned in a lot of the schools as well as a lot of her other books because they deal with such harsh topics. I definitely know that my high school banned Ellen Hawkins books, so me and my friend at the time, Sally, used to bring these books to school just to fight the system because these books are so amazing, and she definitely deserved more credit than my school gave her credit for because she writes so well, and I definitely love her so much because she's not afraid to deal with the harsh topics out there. The next book I have for you here is Identical by Ellen Hawkins. This story follows the story of 2 twins, Kylie and Ren, I think her name is. Oh no, it's Renee, I think it is. Yeah, I was right. Renee, there we go. Let's follow the story of Kylie and Renee, two twins that couldn't be more different if they tried. Kylie is the good golden student girl who gets straight A's, follows the systems through and through, and has the perfect boyfriend, while Renee is very hard into the drug scene, alcohol scene. She loves sex more than anything. And I think she's definitely the school's prominent bad girl in this novel. But as perfect as Kaylee may seem, Kaylee is actually harboring a very huge secret from her past and her present day, while Renee also knows about the secret, but in some ways Renee might be more messed up than we originally thought she was. In this novel, I definitely recommend this novel because it has such a huge twist to it. A lot of people don't see the twist coming. Even I couldn't see the twist coming. I think I definitely need to reread this book because it's definitely awesome. And I'll definitely have more Ellen Hawkins reviews because I'm thinking about doing my favorites for September because I've been in such a huge reading slump. I've been trying to read It by Stephen King. Hasn't worked out for me. I definitely won't get it done before the movie drops next week. But definitely I suggest picking this book up if you want an Ellen Hawkins book. And then the next book I have here is Crank by Ellen Hawkins, because why wouldn't there be another Ellen Hawkins book on here? I mean, come on. Really? Did anyone expect me not to have Ellen Hawkins books on here? But I think this is one of her best novels up to date. Crank follows a girl named Christine. Or Krista, I think her name is. She has two names in this novel. She has, she doesn't have the name. Christina, there we go. This follows Christina. She is the perfect straight A student. She has her whole future in life set up for her until one day she goes to visit her father in Reno, and then she gets hooked on this thing we like to call the monster. And it's basically her downward spiral from there. Now, I will give a trigger warning to people who haven't read this yet. There are trigger warnings for drug abuse and rape in this book. So if those are subjects that you don't really like reading about, or definitely don't want to read about, I definitely suggest straying away from this book because they do deal with these topics in a really realistic manner. Manner that's very gruesome, in my opinion. Like, these were the most gruesome. This was one of the most gruesome books that I've ever read up to date. But it's very realistic because if a lot of you don't know or don't follow Ellen Hawkins, this is basically a loose story about her own daughter and her daughter's addiction to meth. So if you didn't know that, fun fact for you, this is actually loosely based off Ellen Hawkins' daughter's addiction to meth. But if you really want a real account, I believe Flirting with the Monster also has real excerpts about Ellen Hawkins' daughter, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. I definitely gotta get Flirting with the Monster because it's definitely sounds like an intriguing book. It's real life stories from about meth addiction, so I definitely should pick that up because a lot of people don't know in my hometown meth addiction is very huge over there. So I picked this up because I knew quite a few people that were addicted to meth at the time. So I read this book and it really changed my opinion. I was always a girl that never wanted to do drugs, and I never have touched drugs up to this date. Alcohol is a drug, and so is caffeine. caffeine, but besides that, not very prominent with these things. But I definitely suggest picking this up if you're looking for a very realistic portrayal of drug addiction, because this is definitely a book that definitely realistic portrays it. And last but not least, my book on here that I thought I'd save for last because a lot of people haven't heard about it, and it's by one of my favorite indie authors, and that's Demon Kissed by H.M. Ward. I had to I totally blanked on her name for a moment. But this follows the story of Ivy. Ivy, she's a very normal girl, living a very boring life, as you would like to call it. And then one day, her boyfriend at the time, this isn't a huge spoiler because it's literally on the first page of the book if you flip to it. But then one day, her boyfriend of months suddenly turns into a monster, and the one thing he claims that he wants is Ivy's soul. So nearly stranded by this demon who thinks that he claimed all her soul, Ivy is now transformed into a half demon, half angel who must hold back and hide her identity because it turns out she is in the middle of this huge prophecy that involves the underworld, and it's a very great book. Very crazy synopsis. I'm not very good at explaining the synopsis, but it's very hard synopsis to follow. But this definitely was a crazy ride. I loved this book, and it's got one of my favorite relationships in it besides Rose and Dimitri and Damon and Elena. It's got Colin and Ivy in it, and Colin and Ivy, it plays on this, they were friends to lovers relationship, and I definitely love this relationship. It's one of my favorite relationships, and I do definitely love the friends to lovers relationship things, even though sometimes it doesn't work out, but sometimes it does, and this is definitely a book where it does work out very well. But at the same time, there's a lot of issues that they must face together, and as you can see, this is one of my favorite novels by all the tabs on it, because that's all the Colin and Ivy scenes that are in there. Honestly. But there you guys have it. That was my top favorite books before I discovered Booktube. What are some of your favorite books before you discovered this whole community? Comment down below and let me know, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!